Thank you all for waking up early in Las Vegas. Anything I think before noon is early. And thank you for Dr. Hahn moderating. Of course, we have to thank the incredible staff that helps to put together a meeting of this size and this scope, as well as the entire organizing committee, and of course, Dr. Carrie Lyons and Dr. Park. Incredible information that you just saw from Dr. Dudek, which just shows the passion that goes into creating the MegaGen implant line. And I think that we can all agree that we are using some of the best products that exist for our patients. And I think having Dr. Park as a dentist just shows his level of commitment to being able to deliver these products because he's used them. And he continues to be able to give us the confidence that these parts and pieces work for our patients. And so we just recently had the opportunity to go down to Daegu and visit the incredible manufacturing facility, lecture facility, and again, another vision of Dr. Park that has come to fruition. And we were extremely impressed with this amazing facility. And it just shows the impact that MegaGen has on the world. I always like to start out these types of lectures, and I'm very privileged and honored to be with these two gentlemen here, Dr. Isaac Tawil and Dean Vafiadis, who's just absolutely at the top of their profession. And so hopefully we're going to share in our threesome here some information. But we have to start out with the foundation, and that foundation is that there is a danger when we are bound by two-dimensional concepts when we live in a three-dimensional world. And you've seen some of that yesterday, and we're going to try to give you a little bit more impact because we all share the same philosophy, I believe, that there's two technologies that we will not place implants without. Maybe we should add the third one, and that would be the clean implant to make sure that the implants are appropriately clean and sterile. But the two technologies are cone beam CT and understanding whether our implants can be loaded. And of course, that's cone beam CT and resonance frequency analysis, or ISQ. And you saw some of that yesterday as well by some of the speakers. And so we're going to show you a couple of different technologies. We're going to show you a couple of different ways that we implement these technologies. But the reality is that we need to be able to have the confidence that we can load an implant, not just place an implant, not just be able to have it stable. Because today, as you saw from Miguel, and by the way, thank you, Miguel, for being such an incredible moderator, as always, but also such an amazing person, as we've seen by all of the wonderful things that you're doing around the world. And so when we start to look at implant stability and ISQ, we have to have the confidence that when we place an implant, not only can we restore it in 3 months or 2 months or 6 weeks, but the same day, and we need to be able to look at our devices that allow us to be able to measure that stability. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move into some of the information that becomes so important for us as a baseline cone beam CT diagnosis and treatment planning. And so we divide the world into 3 different components: diagnostic freehand, template-assisted, and full template guidance. And you've probably heard me speak about this before, but again, this is the foundation based upon our Ganz Rinaldi guided surgery protocols that we've published many times in our last textbook. And for those of you who have not seen our textbook, this is available now in several languages. If anybody can read Chinese, please, you can tell me if that was actually correct, because I can only see the pictures. And we just had it recently come out in Spanish, so we're very proud of this textbook. And so that lays the foundation for template-assisted, because I'm not going to include diagnostic freehand, because that's not what we're really going to show today. We're going to show template-assisted, which allows us to be able to position implants based upon a predetermined plan, whether you're using any type of cone beam CT interactive treatment planning software. We have R2Gate, of course, that is one of the premier products that we're discussing here. But of course, for years, we've been using other products as well. We're going to rely today mostly on full template guidance. Full template guidance allows us not only to drill our osteotomies, but to place the implants through the cylinders to give us the most accurate assessment of the position that we had originally planned, and you saw some of that yesterday as well. But in order to do some of these cases, we have to remove teeth. We have to create bone reduction, a concept in terms of the template design that I helped pioneer back in the early 2000s. And now we're finally beginning to understand how we use this in our everyday practice with some of the most incredible technology. But our goal here is not to place implants. Our goal is to deliver teeth. We need to deliver teeth because that's what our patients need, as you just saw with that beautiful patient from Africa. And so when we have a way of being able to coordinate not just the placement of the implant, but the prosthetic design at the same time, or whether we load it or we don't load it, we have to link the restoratively driven plan so that patients walk out with teeth. That's our goal. And by the way, you see this little arrow here? We're going to talk about that little Swiss lock that helps to attach some of these component parts so that we have these stackable components that allow us this type of precision with our advanced guides. And so when we do a guided smile concept where we're going to take a patient, take out their teeth the same day, we have to be able to link this plan. We have to have the blueprint for success so that we can reduce the bone properly, so that we can allow the restorative component to snap into place, checking the bite, making sure the patient's occlusion is correct so the patient walks out with teeth the same day. So that's our goal. That's what we would like to try to achieve. And part of the way that we do that, of course, is with using wonderful interactive treatment planning software like R2Gate and be able to assimilate all of that information about the patient's unique anatomy. The patient's unique anatomy, the reality of anatomy, is brought to us because of cone beam CT and interactive treatment planning software like R2Gate. But we have to learn to look at this in a different way than we were taught in dental school, because we were only taught about panoramic radiographs and periapical radiographs. And when we start to look at 3 dimensions, we can't just look at this one slice, which could represent only 0.2 of a millimeter slice thickness. We're only seeing a small amount of what we need to be able to see. And then, of course, we can visualize in color. And when we can visualize in color, that's going to give us the next step to make sure that we have the accuracy that we need.
Once we've accumulated this data, how are we going to start with this? We've taken a scan. We've now checked our densities. But how are we going to now combine this? What do you have to do? We do our typical diagnostic wax-ups, impressions. Some now impressions are technically scannable that have titanium oxide built inside. And this is a new technology that we can use. Instead of purchasing, let's say, a 3D intraoral scanner, we can use extraoral impressions and then do an extraoral desktop scanner. And we can incorporate that and bring that into our patients. So taking these impressions, placing them into a desktop scanner, and then simply emailing it to somewhere in these clouds for our labs to be able to take it down, or for you to use in your office for printing purposes. And we can do the same with 3D scanners. The intraoral scanners are amazing. Here is a new one. You can visualize it outside from 3Disc called the Heron, which will be out on the market very shortly. And it takes amazing technology. We have the 3Shape scanner up there as well. And there are so many that we can accumulate this data. And once we have this data, we can then bring that all together into a program such as R2Gate to try to be able to deliver to our patients the same day implant. Excuse me. So we can try to be able to give our patients, because what do our patients want? They want teeth now. They don't want teeth in a week or a month or 6 months. So we can use this amazing sophisticated technology in R2Gate to determine bone density, choose our implant sizing. We can then go and use that into the R2 planning software for milling and be able to design our final crowns. And with the technology that's going, we can do this today. We can plan, we can scan, plan, and then start developing our restorations using sophisticated CAM to CAD/CAM dental technologies, and now soon to be printed technologies, printed crowns.
You should learn.
And our motto is always to go in a keyless solution. I do have keys. I still do. I have to use them to get into my house every morning and lock the door. Sometimes there are cars that still require keys. Mine is a wireless Bluetooth remote. So why are we using keys in today's day and age when we have more sophisticated technology? And this technology, delivered by this amazing product from these R2 gate kits, to be able to take this and not have to use a metal sleeve, because I only have 2 hands and I only have 2 assistants. That's only 6 arms. How am I going to sit there and devote 2 hands to doing one procedure? Then I need retraction, and I need suction, and I need irrigation. It's just too much. So keys are for other purposes these days and not for our surgical guides. And we can use the sophisticated R2 gate software to plan and fabricate a surgical guide and deliver our implant with pure accuracy, like you saw yesterday by the people who were speaking about it, from Marco Tordes, how they were showing, and Miguel Stanley that was showing you how to get this into a horizontal and vertical position where we had actually planned our implant to be able to restore these teeth in the same day. And we can do this extremely nicely by gathering our 3D technology through our cone beams. But when we take a look at this technology, we can say to ourselves, how are we going to plan a case like this? Where are we going to go ahead and place our implants? When we look at the angulation of this tooth, it's quite difficult. We want to be able to place the implant in the triangle of bone, but once I extract this tooth, I may remove all that buccal plate, that valuable buccal plate that can really help us. So when we analyze the root surface and we try to plan where we are going to place our implant, obviously, if I had placed it into the extraction site, this would not go very well. So we would need to reangulate our implant into what I invented many years ago, called the triangle of bone concept, in 1795. And once we do that, we can do amazing things with 3D printers. This case was done with a Formlab, but the Ray-Den printer now, printing even faster and better technology. But we can design this, print models, make our final abutments before we even touch the patient. And using amazing techniques from Dr. Churbis and Sion Press and Mitzias and the PET group from the Team Atlanta and Howie, we can do techniques like this using the root membrane technique and shape the root shield, the root membrane. And we can extract that palatal portion, leave that buccal portion in place, and then go fully guided to go ahead and place our implants into the correct position, into our planned position, without deviation. And just after a few short drills, we can simply go ahead and place our implants through the guide, fully guided, and then using the same ideology behind our two-gate to control our depth and to control our hex position so we can use timed hex abutments. And you can see here how it's going in and showing that we're in that green position and our black line is appropriate. So we have our vertical and horizontal stoppage. We can plan these cases and leave space, whether we fill the gap or not fill the gap. We'll leave that up to the expert this afternoon. But we can have our prefabricated final zirconia abutment, this one abutment, one-time concept, not to redisturb the implant. And we can even deliver a temporary crown or have a prefabricated coping in advance. And here we are in our immediate provisionalization. This is how our patient leaves with no bleeding. And we can see when we look even at that day of surgery, we can see the difference between this implant crown and yet the other erythematous tissues surrounding the patient. And this is something that's amazing with, I'm sure Mitzias will get into this afternoon, but having this root membrane there will always give us the eminence without having to do soft tissue grafting. It's a truly amazing technique and a breakthrough in technology. And we already have our final coping pre-made, which we were keeping for the patient. Then we simply can take an impression of that and fabricate our final restoration. And again, when you look at these x-rays, take a look at the implant crown in comparison to the rest of the teeth with no inflammation. Such an amazing technique. And 1 year later, we re-examine, and we see again at the beautiful soft tissue. But look at the neighboring teeth. Still, they have more issues. We can do this not just for a single teeth, but fully guided. This was done before R2 gate was available in the US, so we had to utilize these line systems to control our hex position. But simple drilling through a guide, using the amazing R2 gate kit, the surgical kit, and then delivering our, excuse me, let me go back to that.
You got it.
And then being able to deliver our implants through the guide, using, again, that timing, the implant timing, so we can deliver immediate restorations for our patient in the position as to where we had planned it. And that is the ultimate goal, to when we have good bone, to keep that good bone, be able to preserve that bone, place the implants into the correct position, into where we had initially planned that out to be. Too often we see errors with other guides, and using these R2 gate software and R2 gate drilling kits, we get no error.
So I think you saw that this implant is a true platform switch implant. And being a true platform switch implant, it's a little bit different than many of the other implant systems on the market. But in order to be able to complete the diagnostic phase, and we're going to go a little bit faster here, I think, we're going to have to look at the desired result, which of course is the teeth. And so we're going to have to merge some of the technologies, the intraoral scan that you just saw Isaac demonstrate, and you're going to see more from Dean a little bit later, where we can merge our STL file, the file that exists from this digitization from either an intraoral scanner or a stone cast or an impression that gets scanned, so that we can do our restorative planning. We need to be able to assess all aspects of the patient anatomy in relationship to the teeth that we're going to replace. So when we have this space here, it's not just about like, 3 millimeters, 8 millimeters from one tooth to an implant. It's about where they emerge through the envelope of the tooth. That is true restoratively driven planning. And this was what we need to try to achieve in all of our planning, regardless of which software that you use. But it's based upon, of course, three-dimensional imaging technologies and interactive treatment planning software, because you can't tell if that implant is close to the nerve or not in a spatial position. But we know, based upon our acumen, exactly where those implants are going to go, and you can see the actual clinical result here of placing the implants exactly where they're planned. Now, of course, in 1795, when I invented that triangle of bone concept, before Christopher Columbus, and you can visualize the tooth as it resides into this alveolus. And this will help us make a decision between a cement-retained position for the restoration or a screw-retained position. And we also need to be able to discuss whether we're going to graft that area or not. And so as we start to visualize these areas in terms of the volume of bone, we have different classifications of the root position within that alveolus, which will help us determine whether or not we're going to bisect that triangle like this for a cement restoration, or we're going to move that implant into a different position so that we can get a screw-retained restoration, which seems to be where we're headed again. Because remember, we started out with a screw-retained position in the early Brannemark days, and now we're moving back to that with our zirconia-type restorations, as you will see. So the triangle of bone gives us that formula to be able to assess that volume of bone so that we can, in fact, be able to make these decisions. And then we can have something like a tooth sitting on its root, and we have that beautiful transition zone from the implant, because this is, again, a platform switch implant, which is going to be buried a little bit deeper. But can you tell if this is screw-retained or cementable? Well, you should be able to plan for that screw access hole coming directly within the body of the tooth. And that's our goal, to be able to achieve this over and over and over again. Of course, if the bone is not there, we're going to grow the bone. And so having the opportunity to be able to deliver a screw-retained prosthesis and not worry about cement being trapped could actually offer us a tremendous benefit versus other concepts that we could have. But that doesn't mean that screw-retained restorations, cement-retained restorations are not acceptable. Of course, we're still going to do this. But the technology gives us the power to be able to diagnose, to be able to treatment plan, to be able to communicate that plan so that all members of the team can help us to be able to execute the plan. This is where we are. Now, Isaac and myself are very involved in the Digital Dentistry Society, as well as Lars Hansen and many other people that are here, and we hope that you will learn more about our organization in the very near future in the U.S. So when you see a case like this, and I showed this in our workshop, here is a patient that comes to your office, someone else put the implants in. Can you restore this case? Dean, can you restore this case? Anyone, can you restore this case? How do you know if these implants are integrated? What do? Do you just remove the cover screws that are here, the healing collars, and then take an impression and hope that your laboratory is going to be able to create prosthetic gymnastics to make a beautiful restoration? Or do you make sure that you don't have air integration, where an implant is completely sitting outside the bone? Now, this was taken from social media only a few weeks ago. We see these cases on a regular basis. That implant is sitting outside the bone. How would you know if you could do this? So very quickly, I'm going to go through a case that failed. This is what we get to. We get patients that come in with failing dentition. This is supposed to be a post-operative condition where there was a bilateral sinuses, 8 implants placed in the maxilla, implants placed in the mandible, and this is what the patient was left with after spending more than $60,000 in their treatment. And so when we have this opportunity to be able to visualize this in 3 dimensions, we in fact have to use these tools like selective transparency to visualize one object that is translucent and one object that may be more opaque. And it behooves us to be able to spend the time to create the plan, to diagnose properly, because where there was supposed to be bone in the maxillary sinus, there's no bone there. We need to be able to make sure that we can assess that existing patient anatomy. And so there was no preoperative scan. This was a flapless surgery in the mandible. There was no evidence of any bone that was left in the sinus, and of course all the implants had already failed, and the patient really was not happy. So what do we do for a patient like that? We have to be able to analyze the condition. And when we start talking about bone reduction and bone reduction templates, we have to understand that we can't just arbitrarily cut the bone down. We have to have a formula. Here's an asymmetry that exists in this patient's mandible. Here's the sinus augmentation that I ended up doing for this patient after he came back from the West Coast to the East Coast, and now he's flying back and forth. There's bone in that totally pneumatized sinus now that we can plan for implant placement. But now let's talk about the lower. In the lower, we have failing implants. Before you plan any bone reduction template, before you plan to reduce that bone, you want to make sure you plan the implant positions first. That way you will ensure that you don't do any damage to adjacent structures. And this is a concept that I developed back in 2002. What was it, 1892? And we published first in 2006. So that is the first bone reduction guide that was produced. And back then, nobody wanted to do this because it was too complicated. It took too many different software applications to do it. So now when we look at the cross-sectional views and we can analyze each one of these sections, we can determine what we need to do and look at the length of the implants versus where the failing implants existed. So we're using our interactive treatment planning software to be able to do segmentation, to separate based on density, to look at selective transparency, to be able to make our implants parallel, to be able to address where the mental nerves are. And then we're going to use some wonderful forceps that are out there, the Frings forceps. Isaac and I can't tell you enough about some of these instruments. If you haven't seen them, go to the exhibit booth. And I was able, because of the aggressive nature of this particular forceps design and the fact that those implants were not in any bone, we're able to just pull them out. And then we're going to do what's called template assisted, which is here. We're going to drill, just like Isaac showed you with the keys. with a key system, but in a resin 3D printed template, and then we're going to place the implants freehand. So that's template assisted when you're placing the implants freehand, even though you use the template to drill the osteotomies. And so we have gone beyond brain-guided implantology to be able to deliver implants where they should go, and then we're going to test these implants to make sure that they are stable. So we're going to use our Mega ISQ or the IDX version from Ostel to be able to make sure that these implants, these implants are stable. And I think we had some wonderful values, and those values allowed us to do a conversion prosthesis for our patient. And so many articles have been published in the literature, and we're going to be very happy to make some of these available for you. So the consequences of what we do are based upon our ability to diagnose and treatment plan properly. We had the wonderful fortune of being able to go to Africa last year. I'm so blessed and honored to be one of the directors of MINIC. I urge you all to take the next step and to join this wonderful educational organization.
So now that we've gone through and seen what we can do using a template-assisted procedure, using keys and then placing freehanded, we need to go to that next level. Here we have a patient who is always very difficult to get them to smile when they're unhappy with their teeth. And this is what Miguel Stanley talks about all the time, life-changing dentistry. And this no half smiles concept. So we have to go through our preoperative planning. But this is how the patient presents. And we see this all the time. And it's often very hard financially for some of these patients to be able to afford to do, let's say, full mouth GBR or sinus augmentations. So we have to go through our planning to evaluate what can we do for this patient. And for this patient, the most affordable and best treatment for him was going to be do a bone reduction guide. But first, we plan the implants. We see where they want to go, where we want to place them. Make sure they're well within that triangle of bone concept. And then we go through the procedure, and we plan this out very well. We do full reflection to try to be able to anchor into the bone to be able to give ourselves a stackable guide. Gone are the days of switching guides, but now we can use stackable guides. And what's beautiful about these guides, we can make them out of printed metal, 3D printed metal. So there's no flex, there's no movement, there's no bending, there's no breaking. We can fixate these, and we can rely on the teeth to drive these in, not on a bite. When your patient is sedated, how difficult is it to get them to bite down? You have to manipulate their jaw. So we no longer have to worry about that. And once we have our chrome guide in its place, we can then go ahead and do our bone reduction. We can do it very quickly. This is using some tools from a great company, Meisinger, outside, their alveoloplasty kit. And it's wonderful. And we can measure whether we've done the proper bone reduction by using this carrier guide template to assure that we're in position. Then through using the series of drills, same exact drills that we were using before, the R2 kit, the revolutionary R2 kit, with its built-in stoppers. We go through our drilling sequence. We go through our implant placement. And again, we can go fully guided. Here, we're going to use some multi-unit abutments, in this case, that are going to be straight, so we don't necessarily care about our hex timing. But for implants that do require angled multi-unit abutments, we have built in a lug nut style system to get it to be where the flat side, that green line, will be towards the facial. And so we insert our multi-unit abutments. We insert our temporary cylinders and look at the passivity as to how this final prefabricated nanoceramic material gets inserted in with ease. And this is how our patient leaves. Wonderful. Really nice. Great implant placement, avoiding, you can see those little pinholes in between where those pins were resting with our foundation guide. Just a couple weeks later, taking out sutures, and look at the tissue. It's wonderful, doing a nice flat or convex style appliance. And after the patient is healed and ready to be restored, we can scan this appliance. No impressions. Patient comes in for a post-op, and we take a scan. And yes, my hands do move that fast to scan. And we can then take that and send that to our laboratory. In this case, we send to Rodental Laboratory. And we take our bite registration as well. And then they can build this structure called an iJig, which is a wonderful appliance held in by a thermoplastic template. And the purpose of this, scanning the implant, we can then send it to them, have this iJig created and shorten our restorative time to, let's say, about 3 visits or so. So we take this iJig in this carrier tray. We place it into the mouth very easily. We use our Meg Torque to drive it in. Wonderful device. I can't work without it. I don't know how anyone can these days. No more dropping screws. It's just a wonderful appliance. And then simply remove the thermoplastic template, and we can see that it's in the proper position. We can adjust occlusion at this point as well. And then we lute together these pieces just like we would, whether using a Duralay, juicy resin material, or even simple composite. And we take our bite registration, but in addition, we use flowable impression material to go underneath to capture the intaglio surface. Notice the holes to capture this and not let it go. So we're not using trays for impression, just simply flowing that and taking a simple bite registration. And we send that to the lab to do a 3D design analysis. And at this point, we can make any changes we want virtually without even touching the patient. And then we'll receive a temporary prosthesis to check. We'll go through our excursive movements. We'll change any designs. We want to move a tooth over and, let's say, get something into a little bit more symmetry. We can at this time. We can add flowable composite to these areas to add where we want to give it back to the laboratory and simply just send it to them. No impression required. They can then make their final prosthesis, and we can take this patient into a whole new world where we can change his life by changing one smile at a time and give him back an affordable prosthesis. And this using a newer nano ceramic with a Tawil base.
So part of what we do is continue to grow based on a lot of these technologies, and Isaac and myself are so proud to partner together as co-directors of Advanced Implant Education. We deliver, hopefully, some wonderful training. We have some of our faculty members in the back of the room that are part of this wonderful organization, and all of these cases are done with the help, of course, of Megagen and IDS to help provide us with some of the parts and pieces that we need. And we will talk more about that and perhaps at the end. Here's an article that we just published not long ago. When we talk about great minds thinking alike, you saw some interesting things yesterday. And of course, since I've been doing this since the 1700s, we've actually been able to accumulate a lot of knowledge. And so here is another concept. When we talk about this scallop guide, and this is a publication that's already in print, and we can visualize the same kind of concept. But again, this is resin, and Mark Tadros showed that yesterday. And of course, we're still linking the position of the teeth to the position of the implants. So the restorative component must be part of the guide today. If it's not, then we're not really achieving full template guidance. And so in this article, we're looking at that scallop shape here. It's a little bit different in concept because this was used to seat the actual restoration instead of using the Swiss locks that you saw earlier and you will see again. And so, again, great minds think alike, and anybody that wants a copy of this article will be happy to send it to you with my dear friend from Canada, Gilbert Tremblay. Now, when we start to think about going to Korea, they served us some very interesting meals while we were there. Everyone got one of these pots. Honest to goodness, it is absolutely true. Really amazing experience going to Korea. Now, Isaac is going to show you now the next generation of the scallop guide, kind of like what we saw yesterday and as a precursor to the article that we just published.
So when you look at this case, here's Rose. Rose still has wonderful roots, and to do bone reduction on this case would really, truly break my heart. And Rose has the ability to afford a little bit more of a finer prosthesis. So we look at this case, and it was recently re-cemented on, so we can let the patient walk out throughout the office. But we look at this, and we look at the scalloping, and we say, why do we want to destroy this? Why do we want to just wipe it away? And going back to the Tremblay article and what Lars Hansen and Team Atlanta have been doing, trying to build this scallop guide, we had the same ideology. As Dr. Ganz said, great minds think alike. So we can do this without a resin-type fabrication, but in a metal chrome type of appliance, so we don't have to worry about resin being destroyed while we're using these aggressive alveoplasty burrs. And we can design these scallop guides in advance and have it fabricated and ready to be delivered to our patients. And we go through that 3D planning. But when I look at this, Scott, I look at this and I say to myself, I'm going to have some difficulties trying to get some of these roots. What can I do here to be able to handle these types of cases?
We want to preserve all of the structures if possible, and the diagnosis and the treatment planning case is the foundation for the next step.
So we fabricate this scallop guide, same way we would do for a bone reduction template. And you can see the scallop guide up in the corner here. And
here's the root membrane concept that we published not long ago in Dentistry Today with Mitzias and Isaac together. You may have seen this in October. But you know what's really exciting is the fact that this is not being done just recently. There's 5 years and 10-year research. Go to the next slide. And in fact, recently published again with Mitzias and the whole crew, human histological evidence. So we can see that 5 years in function in this histological slice, that this is a concept that is viable. And Mitzias is going to talk about that in much greater detail later.
And so then we go to the mouth. And now we don't want to just pull out these teeth. Again, we've used the same concept of seating over the teeth to be able to deliver the guide, introduce the scallop guide into the mouth.
So again, this is fitting with the Swiss lock technology.
So no movement, no pins to try to hold this together, no plastic pins. And now we can take this and we look at this and we can say, why extract these teeth? Let's reduce the teeth to the bone. And where we have to shape the bone in that scallop type architecture, using some really nice tools, again, from Meisinger that were kind enough. And then we simply remove this template. And then we can re-examine the area and decide where we want to go from there. But you can see the architecture that comes from developing this scallop guide. And so then we take this and we take the concept from Simon Press and Mitzias and Gluckman and Salama and everybody that's been doing this. I've been doing these cases now for over 6 years, and the rest of our Korean team that has been doing this. Wonderful technology and wonderful devices that we've created now to be able to give you the tools to be able to do this simply in your office and go straight to that same type of ideology where we'll do this in a surgical fashion where we can use our surgical R2 gate drills to be able to drive through and control this. So we have already prepared that and then deliver our implants into the correct position. And you can see these lug nut styles here showing me where my timing needs to be by my hex. Because in this case, because of such angulation, we did need to use multi-unit abutments to change that angulation and bring it back more towards the palatal.
So while you can envision doing a guided root membrane concept or partial extraction therapy, this is a full arch. Look how many teeth were utilized, saving and preserving that bone.
And then blocking out this area very simply, inserting the prosthesis into the Swiss locks over the temporary cylinders with ease and flowing material around it very easily to do a quick pickup of that material, then doing all the other work outside the mouth as Marco showed you yesterday in his delivery of his device with a nice, beautiful, temporary nano ceramic. And then inserting again with my favorite tool, the Meg Torque. I can't work without it. And being able to deliver our patient back this type of architecture in a same-day fashion. And you can see just a week later what that scalloped technique looks like. So it truly delivers that confidence to our patients.
Now, of course, the next step is going to be to finalize these types of restorations. And, of course, we have the monolithic zirconia now in all different sizes and shapes and layers and everything else. This is, of course, what everyone talks about. But unless you have the plan to be able to deliver these cases, here would be an FP1 type prosthesis. If this was a root membrane, this was not, but if this was a root membrane concept, the goal here would be to deliver these multi-unit abutments and be able to deliver a prosthesis that would look just like teeth growing out of the tissue. And sometimes, by the way, we will need a bone profiler to seat some of these multi-unit abutments. But look at the soft tissue stability. This is what our goal is, not just to get the teeth in place, but also to preserve that soft tissue contour. And that's part of what that root membrane concept brings to us to maintain those types of restorations when possible. And monolithic zirconia allows us to be able to create wonderful final prostheses, but we have to start somewhere. And we start with 3D printed replicas so that then we can try this in, have the patient bite, and then we can design, and this one was designed with Jonathan Kang's lab, R2 Digital, who happens to be very close to where my office is, and we're able to communicate with the laboratory about the position of the implants, the position of the multi-unit abutments, where the embrasures are going to go, and deliver a final zirconia restoration that looks like it grew right out of the patient's gingival tissue. So that's an FP1 type prosthesis. We don't need pink for everything. We're showing a lot of pink today in some of the cases that we're doing, but the reality of anatomy is that we will need to use pink in many cases, and in other cases, we may not. And so we are very happy to be able to present to you in this short amount of time our trio, and we're going to now turn this over to our wonderful colleague, Dean.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here. We've developed some really great concepts, and I want to share with you some wonderful relationships we've built with these amazing companies to do our digital technology. We've been in digital for over 14 years. We have multiple scanners and multiple types of milling machines in our laboratories. We have 4 prosthodontists, 2 general dentists, and a multi-specialty practice. I don't do surgeries like they do. I mean, that's incredible stuff. But we do some analysis of digital technology. So for digital private practice, I'm working 4 days a week at our practice, and I have 1 day at education at NYU. And for us, it's 75% single-unit dentistry. So I hone in on the details of those single-unit dentistry and how to make patients happy very quickly with these milling products, with these wonderful digital technology, with different scanners that we have, being able to mill provisionals in a very easy way with the new milling, which I'm going to share with you, the different milling machines. And intraoral scanning for us is every day. I mean, that's what we do every day for single units and multiple units. And our CAD/CAM features today that allows us to go ahead and merge these files together to be able to get a beautiful result for our patients. But what we use every day is this, and this is really what I want to share with you. The SLR camera, we can't work without that camera. Our Trio scanners, our high-def scanners, our CEREC scanners, our CBCT scan. This is how we put things together, our preview smile design. This happens every day in our office, the implant studio, the R2 gate philosophy of placement. Our iPhones become a wonderful tool for videography. Our diode laser, our ceramic oven to add context. Many times single units come back, I got to add a contact. I don't want to have to lose that time. I'm able to do it in the office. Our micro etchers, our different systems that we use. And of course, MegaGen being our first one. Our associate dentists and our amazing staff. And of course, the number one thing is to integrate all this. Once you have this integrated, your office becomes a very valuable tool for the patient education and a patient experience. We believe that the patient experience is much more paramount than what we used to do for our new patients. So our new patient experience becomes an hour visit for our patients that they can see what we do digitally. That becomes a very powerful tool because in this world of competition and social media, we want to be an advanced type of office where we can offer wonderful services. But I always say that digital technology, oh, I blew that one. I don't like this changer. I don't like this changer. It's hurting me already. We like to say that digital technology does not replace fundamental principles. Okay, if you give me a seasoned dentist who's been practicing for 20, 30, 40 years, and I give him and I teach him digital technology, he becomes an amazing digital dentist. The young dentists coming out right now to dental school, they have minimal experience out of dental school. They need education. We have a wonderful course at FMR, at NYU, that we teach good dentists to become amazing dentists. But the fundamental issues of dentistry, anatomy, tissue, preparation design, I mean, where do we really learn how to do that the right way? Digital technology helps us become better. Doesn't matter what scanner you have. We use all different scanners. We have 4 scanners in the office. They all work really well. What's the critical point in 2018? Which laboratory are you using? Which printer does your laboratory have? Does it have a $20,000 printer? Does it have a $2,000 printer? Does it have a $500,000 printer? And is your accuracy going to be dead on? Because the scanners are accurate. When we do our implant diagnosis, we do this in front of the patient. So we do single unit planning, multiple unit planning in front of the patient. STL files and DICOM files 4 years ago was not available to merge them together. We were one of the first developers of that, many different companies, to bring it all together and then get our surgical guides. And then this becomes the most important thing for that new patient, a visual communication of treatment with your letterhead, with the snapshot of a photo that you discussed with them. That becomes a powerful tool in digital technology and connectivity. In the last 4 years that we've been using MegaGen implants, my success rate went all the way up to 99%. We have 3 failures, and those are very, very difficult patients with very difficult bone. But I also, on the right, I want to show you, we had 4 Fosamax patients successfully treated with MegaGen. We placed 1 implant on her. She lost all her implants. We placed 1 implant. I said, I'm not going to charge you, because I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to have a success if we do it a certain way with flapless surgery. If that implant becomes successful, we'll place a second one for you. And that's what happened with 4 of our patients. So think about that. That's a big change in the type of implant there and the type of service that we're providing. Today, if you ask me about digital scanning, about 75% of my Crown single units are scanned. If you ask me how many of my implants are scanned, it's 100%. 100% of my implants restoratively are scanned with our scan body from MegaGen, which we helped develop, and I really appreciate the company for allowing us to give them advice and then make the changes that really help us. But let's talk about nuances. This patient walks in like this. I said, what happened, doc? Can you help me with this? This guy says, oh, you're the best dentist in Manhattan. I think you can help me. I said, I can't help you. What happened here? This happens all the time. And I went on the internet, I found one of these guys. You see that? It's like a sexy implant. It's got a little curve to it, right? What's going on there? What's happening? We're not paying attention to details, what it is. Emergence profile is a detail-oriented concept. Let's bring it to the table. Number 1 complaint, my patients used to be getting food stuck. Getting food stuck in my implants. How do we change that? Well, let me just share a concept with you. When you have your radiograph, you have your digital design, you drop the lines. And if you look at the position here of that design that he gave me, the designer gave me, it's a little bit off. Now watch what I tell him. I said, no, I want to bring that out to that position. What happens when we bring out the emergence profile? Number 1, we take the gingival floor and we bring it up to tissue level, not near the implant. I don't see peri-implantitis, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing cementable for over 14 years. 85% of our cases are cementable. I don't see peri-implantitis. Our emergence profiles are right at the tissue level. And I'll share that with you. That's the way it's supposed to look. So you can be able to get designs from your design team, but that's the way it's supposed to look. We developed this algorithm for our designers. If you have a laboratory, I highly recommend you send me an email, and I'll send you the article of an algorithm to figure out digitally where those emergence should be. So if you see the cement line, they're way up, away from the tissue. And if you look at the radiographs of these cases, you'll see the anatomical position of these abutments is tight. It's an emergence profile that's been developed with this great position of the tissue that's hermetically sealed at this point. You can't tell what size implant it is, you can't tell where the angle is, but that profile of that abutment looks like a molar. And there's a 7-year follow-up assessments of the tissues. Here's a patient with an anodontia case, and let me show you how MegaGen really helped us in this case. Extracted the tooth, placed the implant, used her existing crown to make a provisional with composite restoration. But look at the tissue and look at the bone that hasn't been disturbed in a flapless surgery. Look at the tissue 4 months later, and when we put in the abutment, look at the contrast difference. If you look at the contrast difference from here to here, you can see where the tissue is really, really tight and the margin's way far away from that implant head. And within a week or 2, we have that kind of result. I really don't like this clicker right now. The tissue comes out really nicely, and you see a really nice hermetic seal of those restorations. But also in tissue preservation. Instead of a healing cap, we're going to customize our healing caps. A little flowable composite and a peak abutment. Well, what does that do? Number 1, flapless surgery, right? We want to create that at stage 1 or even at stage 2. and then be able to scan it. When we go to our digital design, look at our profile. What do? We have the designer look at the radiograph. Are you sending the radiograph to your designer? We've been doing that for 4 years. What happens? He can see where the bone is, and then he can actually design the abutment in the right position. We use the XYZ formula, and we get situations that really look the way they're supposed to in the mouth. And again, look at the tissue, how tight that is. That becomes very, for me, again, single unit implant dentistry, that's what I'm doing, and I don't want to have that space, and I definitely want the cement away from my implant. We're using little composite on our scan bodies to be able to get a really good scan on the abutment and then show the technician exactly where we are. So that helps us emerge that profile from stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3. So again, look at the tissue, and it's nice and healed and hermetically sealed in a beautiful restoration. This patient was just to show you how when we do our educational process at NYU, we take doctors who are good dentists, but they never were taught how to do full mouth rehabilitation, how to restore vertical dimension comfortably, 2, 3, 4, 10 millimeters sometimes, if the patient needs it. There's a 7 millimeter change on this patient. So once the implants are placed, nice hermetically sealed, we get a beautiful scan on these patients, and again, we can create that profile and close that tissue up using our technique by managing the profile of the abutments. The other concept of the joint, looking at the joint positions, and in dental school, we were all taught that the joint position should be 35 degrees on every articulator on every patient. Guess what we've discovered? There's not one human being that has a right condyle the same as a left condyle. Wow. That changes the concept, right, of how we do our full mouth rehabilitation. The condyles have to be set digitally now, very simply. And we can go from nice restorations, implant restorations, in a good vertical dimension, changing the jaw position digitally, because we have everything on file. And we can deliver patients like this predictably with a closed margin, have a very happy patient, and a beautiful hermetically sealed tissue level after 4 years. It hasn't changed. That recession is not going to happen anymore. For this patient, it was an immediate extraction case, an implant. Once the implants are healed, I want you to pay attention to this concept. We actually hold on to the tooth, even though we're going to extract it. What's the purpose of that? Well, once we start scanning, we realize that that tissue position on the PDL of a natural tooth, this is anecdotal now, this is what I'm seeing over the last 6 years, that tissue and that bone maintains itself a little bit better than when I was taking all the teeth out. So we're actually holding the teeth, even through the impression process, even through our digital files, until we're ready for our final jig. And now this is being made by Stratus, 16 micron accuracy. It's an incredible technology right now to be able to deliver this type of restorations. We use our multi-abutments, and you can see the extraction 2 weeks ago that maintains that bone level very clearly. Again, anecdotal for me, I'm just paying attention to what I'm seeing. Those teeth hold that position really well. And then we'll go ahead and mill out beautiful PMMAs that we can actually use with occlusion. So once we figured out our occlusal position, we have our jaw relationship, we measured all the positions, we know exactly that when we put it in, the patient's not going to go like, they're like just off, and you've got to start grinding. That whole has to do with face bow analysis, perfect position of the condyles, and you're trying things in. And now they're closing pretty close into position. You have minor changes, and I'll show you what we do with that too when there are changes. When there are changes, you see right here. This is what I got. I tried it in. This becomes my new verification jig, right? It's very clean, very easy. I can cut it. I can section it if I need to. But what changes is this. I've added composite here. I've added composite. This is an overlay of what I've done to this to change it to make it ideally perfect. Occlusion, in guidance, in aesthetics. And then we scan that, and then he copies it to the final. And the milling machines we have now is 3.5 hours. So it's a much faster milling machine at the laboratory. Sanders here from FMR Laboratory, he's done a beautiful job with our ceramics. And we get things that really fit all the time. And that becomes a very easy thing for us to do in terms of the stress level. Dentistry is very hard. In terms of anterior implants, I love what I saw with Scott and Isaac, beautiful stuff. Let me just share with you one more concept. Well, the concept of a patient asks us, I want a perfect anterior aesthetic implant every time. She's 28 years old, the parents are in the room, and I'm like, I don't know if I can deliver that because the way you lost your tooth or the infection that you've had, I don't know if I can get that anterior aesthetic result. So I asked them, well, maybe I know, pretty much I can get a beautiful aesthetic ceramic bridge, Emax, feldspathic, zirconia. And then I say to them, I said, are you sure you want an implant? And then I take out my glasses. Where's the camera? Is this the camera? And I go like this. And I do my little Robert De Niro. I go, you sure you want an implant? You sure you want an implant? Because I don't know if I can make it look that good. Are you sure about that? I'm watching you. Because I don't know if I can deliver it. And if I can't deliver it, I can't charge them what I need to charge them. By the way, our fees are charged 3 times what we charge our single unit molar, 3 times. Because I got to work 3 times harder, maybe 5 times harder to do an anterior implant. I want to share with you these papers. These papers, we've taken these papers, analyzed them. What was the real nuance of every one of these papers? And they all have a beautiful little trick to use. We took all those papers, put them together, and we developed our paper. I'll share with you in a second. I can email it to you. This was Block's paper about positioning of a tooth and positioning of the provisional. This was Brout's paper. Look at the number here. It's 4 millimeters now. It's not 3 millimeters. It's 4 millimeters. I think Scott said it too. We're deeper with our MegaGen implant. Why? We want to get a beautiful emergence. I want to be able to prepare that. So we take this article. We take the GD's article. We take Khan's article about buccal plate and managing the tissue. And of course, Dennis Tarnow and Steve Chu and the Salama brothers of getting perfect anatomy. So I take all these articles and I said, wow, how can I do this digitally? Well, Neil couldn't be here with us today. He had a family situation. And we pray for his family, for the strength of what he's going through. But Neil had some beautiful things, and I wanted to honor him for being here because he should have been here. He couldn't for what happened. And I took one of his cases, and I said, Neil, let's talk about this with that anterior position. And he does his cases with CEREC. And again, he's thinking the way we're thinking is maintain what's there. Let's not lose what's there. Let's not have to recreate it with soft tissue. So if the patient has a buccal plate, let's not lose it. If the patient has good keratinized tissue, let's not lose it. And he uses a CEREC to mill out his beautiful crown. And he talks about the biologic width at the point of biologic width right here and the point of the prosthetic emergence. And I want to parlay that into my article because he didn't know that we were writing this article, but it kind of fits into exactly his position. And he mills out his unit. He has a beautiful restoration. And he can get a wonderful in-house milled central incisor because he's managing the tissue correctly. Here's our article. CAD-CAM crown root form technique. So what are we doing? We're scanning the patient with your CT scan. You can do this Monday morning. You're going to take a PVS impression or a scan impression. You're going to send it to one of our laboratories, one of our highly skilled digital laboratories. They're going to merge this file. Where's BJ? 2014, I call him up at 2 in the morning, or I'm texting him. He said, stop calling me at 2 in the morning. What are you doing up? I said, I got a great idea. We're going to merge the file. We're going to copy the root, and we're going to make a beautiful anatomic crown root form from the original tooth that we're going to be extracting. So before we extract any anterior tooth today, if we have a buccal plate, which you see right up here, oh, this thing is going to get me upset. Right here, right? We don't want to lose that buccal plate. 3 millimeters to the buccal plate. Where's my implant going to go? 4 millimeters. It's going to go a little bit deeper, okay? He merges the file. I had to pay attorneys. I had to pay patent people to get this idea to go. Now, today, it happens all the time, right? Merge files. And he makes a beautiful PMMA crown root form for 95 bucks. What happens when I take out that tooth? What happens to the tissue? It starts getting all upset, right? Took out my tooth. And what happens 60 minutes later when I put in a perfect replica of that root, and a PMMA polished B1 provisional, and attach it to a peak abutment, polish it, look at the tissue response. This is Steve Chu's technique, just digital, 100% digital. There's no models, there's no nothing. You see the anatomy there. We take the same file and we make the perfect abutment. We keep the mid-buccal facial tissue, and we have a result right now for a high smile line patient. It's the best I ever had in my career. And now we have doctors around the country doing it, and I'll share the article with you. 4 years post-op assessment, number 9. Why? Took out the tooth, put back exactly what was there. Take out a molar. Now think about the molar. You take out a molar, put a customized provisional the size of the root. Take out a premolar, put exactly that size. We had a patient come in with missing number 5, and she needed an implant. We took number 12, brought it over to the other side, digitally. That changes the game, because now if we have the information from the CT scan, we can copy it. We can copy it to full arches. I can't wait to get a case when I can do it all full arch with root anatomy. That's the way I think the body's going to heal the best. Our New York doctor's lab is very, our ribbon cutting is November 4th. We have 6,000 square feet, all the best digital technology, the top printers, the top digital technicians, and I'm there every Friday after dental school, after NYU, teaching that. Our Instagram account, if you'd like to follow us. At NYU, we've been teaching this course for 11 years, taking good dentists, making them amazing dentists. Preparation design, provisional restoration that you've never heard of, digital technology that they never learned. We have a dentist came back 23 years after practice, and he says, Dean, I heard about your course. I think I want to take it. What do you think? And I said, I don't know, try it out. Spend a couple of months with us. He's like, this is the best course. This thing really taught me how to take patients from debilitated into a final restoration in less than 4 or 5 visits, because we're planning the cases so beautifully and so easily. The joint position, take a look. This is a dentist. I'm going to buy you guys a new clicker next year. It's going to be so nice. So nice. Take a look at, this is the dentist. Came into our office and he says, hey, I heard about your full mouth rehabilitation. Can you change my teeth? I said, yeah. Vertically change 8 millimeters. Look at his joint position. Perfectly positioned. Digital, all done digitally. We're working on some new papers at NYU with Dr. Goldstein. You're going to be hearing about that very soon. Our October course is coming up in 2 weeks. Very happy to have it. We're almost sold out. I think we have 2 spots left. But we had a crazy idea 11 years ago to change the world of implants, to change the world of aesthetics, and to change the way of education and how it's taught. And I thank Megagen for always supporting us. When I call Carrie, he says, yes. Yes to all your questions. Yes. And that's the way our partners and partnerships are supposed to work. My father came here from Greece in 1968. I was born in Canada. We lost him last year. But I still remember what he always said to me. Just never forget where you came from and always respect your partners. And I thank you, Megagen, for being a partner and for my family. The mentors that you have, the mentors that I've had, have put me in a position to succeed. We offer our services as mentors for many dentists around the world. Now we're doing live podcasts from my office to mentor the young dentists who just don't know what to do. They got big loans, they're out for 5 years, and they just don't know what to do. I've had mentors. I've watched my mentors. They need mentorship, and they need help. We have 2 seats left for next week, if you're interested. What a great night we had last night. What a great night. How to have a big hand for the team from Megagen. I mean, just a really wonderful time and a really wonderful partnership and a new family that really makes you feel at home. I also have a disclosure. I did my 23andMe. I'm 93% Greek. I'm going to kill this. You're killing every one of my things here. And I'm 7% De Niro. There you go. Sometimes Sean Penn. If I go like this.
Good.
Sean Penn.
Good.
Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Ganz.
We got a couple
Tawil.
things to do.
Oh, you got some things to do?
We got one more
Thank
thing
you.
to do. Hang on.
And believe it or not, we actually are perfectly on time. Thank you, Dean. Fabulous, fabulous material.
Dean.
No, Dean, stay here. They asked us to, do this presentation as a trio, which is very, very difficult to do. For those of you who do this, you know that it is a difficult task, and I think we pulled it off. But we're not done yet, because we have a couple more things that we would like to be able to talk about. First of all, we mentioned our advanced implant education facility. And here I know we have Adriana Cervantes, maybe somewhere in the audience. This is actually her facility. And we are very, very blessed that we have been able to use this for our live surgery courses. And again, many of our faculty members are here. David Peck.
Randy Greenberg, Zachary Grillo, and amongst many others.
Yes.
Roberto Santos.
And what we have been able to do is to tailor programs from the beginners that are novices that have never placed an implant to advanced concepts like ridge splitting and, in fact, Chrome Guide, like you just saw us present today. And so guided surgery concepts are going to continue to be taught literally all over the world. And it's been our goal to try to move from going into some of the international locations to also be able to do some of this stuff in the United States. Now, you'll notice here that we have many different chairs. Each chair, we have some of the best faculty-student ratio, I think, that exists in any of the teaching facilities that, at least that I've been associated with. There's Dr. Peck right there.
Let's go to Chris. Click it. So we had the wonderful fortune of being able to go and do this in Arizona. And when we went down to Arizona, we met this really, truly amazing person who truly defines the word altruism. A man who gave up his entire life, worked out of a trailer park in a homeless area sheltered community, devoted his life, and you can click the video, devoted his life to being able to change these people's lives.
Chris Volchek. I am the founder of the Cass Dental Clinic for the Homeless. The mission here at Cass, and that's it, to empower men, women, and children to end their homelessness. Phoenix, just like other cities, dentistry is the big void. They'll have medical and they'll have all other services, but they don't have dental.
The program that they have established here is really very unique. It offers an opportunity to be able to treat patients that may not have the opportunity to be able to get that treatment on their own.
Giving back and working with service-minded individuals, especially volunteer service-minded individuals, it's a wonderful thing. We feel part of a community, something bigger than ourselves.
This is a one-of-a-kind place on earth. You know, there's nowhere else that can perform optimum premium dental services for homeless.
The people here at Cass are 100% professional. They treat me with respect. They treat everyone, as I've seen, with respect.
I didn't have any insurance at the time, and I wasn't able to financially take care of this tooth. It's a great help.
Cass has been great. I mean, it's a godsend.
Our ability to be able to impact their quality of life, to truly be able to take someone that has a debilitated condition and be able to turn them into a functional person. We're talking about improving not only their aesthetic appearance, but also their function.
By changing their smiles, you can change their emotions and change their psychology and make them a more confident, more comfortable human being to be able to function in society. This is not just about eating. This is about living life.
I'm not afraid to smile anymore. It's opened some doors for me.
A lot of times these people have never been given a break in their entire life. It's our job to give them a break.
Words can't express how grateful I am to get the work done, because again, I wouldn't have been able to pay for it.
To the staff at Cass, I would say thank you for broadening my horizons by making me feel like a whole person. And thank you for your professionalism and for caring enough to do what you do.
So this man who put all this together, and every time I think about him, I just can't tell you, it makes me want to cry because of all his sacrifice that he's given in my life. And it's true, Chris. We truly do love you. We can't thank you enough for all that you do. You, people like Jack Dillenberg, who I believe is in the office, in the audience here, you truly change the world, one person at a time. And it's an honor, truly an honor, to be with you at these programs. And we truly thank you for everything that you've done for the underserved in Phoenix. And we only wish that we could duplicate this in every state in the world. So please come on up and please give us a round of a hand for a wonderfully unique individual. You will not meet another person like this.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm going to start off. I have two things that I want to get to. One is gratitude for Megagen, and specifically IDS Megagen. Kerry Lyons, when I first met him, he said, together we're going to do well by doing good. And Megagen has not wavered from that. That was probably 3 years ago. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to give you a short story of how we got here. I was a dentist for 10 years. It didn't fit my personality. With extreme ADHD, it was very difficult for me to stay in that operatory. I went back, got my MBA, tried to mix those two things, but fortunately, when I was at my MBA graduation, I met a woman, a formidable woman, who changed my life. She had started the homeless effort in Phoenix, Arizona. I started volunteering there. I realized that was my place in life. I left my practice. I started working on the street with the homeless as a social worker, case manager for 5 years. Those were the best years of my life. I related to them. The chaos, everything that they had going on, I identified with them. So that was my place. But what to do with that DDS and MBA at the homeless clinic? I will tell you, across the nation, just like that video said, there are no services for our veterans. Only 7% of our homeless veterans get care, dental care, and there are no dental services in any comprehensive manner for the homeless or the underserved. So I opened a 2-chair trailer in a field. That 2-chair trailer turned into a 8-chair high-tech clinic. From there, we opened a pediatric specialty clinic for immigrant children. From there, we opened a pediatric clinic for foster children, and then another one for boys and girls clubs. So that all came out of that trailer. How did that happen, though, and what's happening now? If I don't have the collaboration of MegaGen for my homeless veterans and my homeless, I have no way to go forward to give what we've always wanted to do, and that is give ultimate care. I imagined that we could give good care back in the trailer days, but what MegaGen is providing and what you've seen for it. Now, I will tell you, when I say homeless, I mean ex-homeless. They're mentored, they have social workers, they're attached, they're just as stable as all of us, veterans and Veterans Administration. So they're getting $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 cases of transformative care. And that's what my focus is to be able, I would give that to everyone in America, but the village that we can control, MegaGen is transforming these people's lives to an extent that I really never could have imagined. So I wanted to tell you a little about us, but really it's the gratitude for MegaGen. We did not have a clear path forward with this technology otherwise. I would have been giving what I considered subpar care. So, Carrie Lyons, thank you so much, and MegaGen and Mr. Park, thank you.